Malta's new government is sworn in. Charmin Gauci explains why police didn't shut down political rallies, and the repentant Carl Sanya Navarra apologizes to PN supporters he might have hurt. All this and more on Lovin Daily. Good evening, Malta and Gozo, and welcome to another episode of Lovin Daily. My name is Yannick, with me is Gianluca and it's been another very busy day in Malta. Obviously, all eyes have been on Robert Abela and his new cabinet, which was sworn in this afternoon. So, you know, after last weekend's election, MPs were yesterday anxiously waiting for the call to know whether they will form part of Robert Abela's government or not. The Prime Minister started calling MPs to his office in Castile yesterday evening, in what appeared to be quite a late night for the Prime Minister. So to give you a rundown of what the new government looks like now that we know. So first of all, quite a few ministries have remained the same. Quite a few ministers have kept their portfolio. Chris Fern, Health, Silvia Schembri in Economy, Michael Falzon, Rodrigal, Descrite Caruana, Clifton Grima. I know they've remained the same. Perhaps the biggest and most surprising change is Ian Borch, who was formerly the Minister for Transport and Infrastructure, who has now moved to Foreign Affairs. His portfolio has been taken up by Aaron Farrugia, formerly the Environment Minister, with the Environment portfolio now going to Energy Minister Miriam Dalli. Parliamentary Secretary Stefan Zunzat-Sapardi will now become a minister solely responsible for public works and planning. A couple of new faces as well: Jonathan Attard, who's been Minister for Justice, Joe Etienne Abela, Active Aging, Andy Elul, Social Dialogue, Alison Zerafa-Civelli, Local Government, Chris Bonnet, EU Funds, and Keith Azzopardi-Tanti will be the Parliamentary Secretary for Research and Youth. In a statement, the government emphasized the mix of experience and new blood, which in fact is the case because 6 of the 23 cabinet members are actually in pretty much their first experience in Parliament. An interesting selection, hopefully will bodes well for the future. What do you make of it, Gianluca?
I agree in the sense that there is a good mixture of experience and new blood, yeah. But at the same time, I was quite surprised to see that some familiar faces were left out, at the foremost being former Justice Minister Edward Zamit-Lewis, alongside Carmelo Abela, both of whom had their fair share of controversy in the past, with the former Zamit-Lewis having called his own voters Jahan, and
it didn't go down well.
Didn't go down well, but it didn't stop him from being elected in the first place.
No. And he was elected on 2 districts.
And he was elected on 2 districts. In fact, Zamit-Lewis and Carmelo Abela had received 2,067 votes and well over 2,000, both of them in each regard, first count votes. Other familiar faces like Dea De Battista, Chris Ajus, and Alex Muscat have also been left out. So there still remains the possibility of seeing some new faces, particularly with respect to the female gender quota, that we could see some new female faces in Parliament, but as yet that remains to be seen. But talking of ministries, we can move on to our second story, which is going to bring us on the subject of the Ministry of Health, with Professor Charmin Gauci explaining why police didn't shut down the political rallies that were taking place in weeks past. Interestingly, the question was brought up by Times of Malta, and Professor Charmin Gauci had answered by stating that throughout the entire time they had been following the science, giving us the guidelines as they should be. In fact, Malta was praised outright for being a champion during the pandemic and in the way it managed its operations, particularly on the subject of the vaccine. But yet, she quoted by saying that it has always been transparent, the ministry, and that has always followed the science. And now the focus has to be moved onto one whereby people should be personally responsible for their health, which to some degree offers a bit of a contradictory element in the sense that, hey, we've got you this far and now you're on your own. And from what we're seeing, the numbers are in fact increasing, although they hadn't been published officially by Saha in the past couple of days, they can still be made accessible, and the numbers are increasing. Whether it's a result of the political rallies, we can't know for sure. But otherwise, I don't know what you make of this, Yannick.
No, to be honest, I would tend to agree with Professor Gauci in that there's obviously going to come a point in the absence of a much more dangerous variant where the responsibility must shift onto people as opposed to the government, as it is with the flu. What gets me a bit is the lack of consistency when it comes to kind of, if you're going to have a rule, apply it across the board, and if you're going to stop a rule from being enforced, do it for a reason other than just because it was convenient, because there was an election. So, if the rules state that mass events still can't be held, then I would expect that to be enforced. Obviously, it's difficult to do so when a party has just won an election and people have taken to the streets. You're limited in how much you can control that. But I think that the lack of consistency is what gets me. So we'll see. Hopefully this COVID pandemic can be put behind us once and for all. On to our next story. So one TV host, Carl Stanja Navarra, has issued a public apology to Nationalist Party supporters and has declared that he has set himself a resolution for this new legislature, which is to be more sympathetic. In a video he uploaded online, he said, starting from today, I will adopt a different type of behavior while maintaining my right to recount what happened inside the PN. He said, it wasn't a matter of sympathy, but about understanding PN supporters and wanting to work with them. Stanja Navarra is obviously a veteran journalist turned propagandist who previously actually formed part of the Nationalist Party before switching allegiance to Labour when former Labour leader Joseph Muscat rose to power. His discussion program, Piazza, is the most popular, is among the most watched on the island, and is often used by the party to attack or push back, against stories or opponents of Labour. So in a short video online, Stanja Navarra defended people's right to vote PN, as though that had anything to do with him, while also apologizing though for any time he might have hurt the PN supporters with his language. He said he strongly believed in political satire, and his intention was never to attack anyone. His pledge comes, days after Labour won the general election, and Robert Abela, in one of his first speeches, said that he wouldn't be tolerating arrogance during this legislature, and making an appeal for all those involved to let humility characterize the next 5 years. So hopefully people have taken Abela's message seriously, and we're in for a very nice and civil 5 years of politics. Yeah,
in fact, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because at the victory speech Robert Abela did mention that his tenure is going to be one that promotes unity, and as a result, seemingly this question of unity seems to have been the narrative in the next few days. I had the opportunity of being at the victory rally for Labour, and it was an opportunity for us to pick the brains of a few of the attendees there, and many of them had in fact told us that they had picked Labour fundamentally because of their stance on unity, because they wanted to see a united Malta, one nation together. Carl Stanja Navarra seems to have taken this approach himself, and I mean, that's a good thing. He has had his fair share of criticism in the past, but I don't think he has come under intense pressure to issue an apology in this regard, and the fact that he did so on his own accord is commendable to a certain extent. So it's a pleasant thing to see, particularly, I mean, because he's part of the station that belongs to a party, So the fact that he's sort of reaching out to the PN supporters,
setting an example,
it's setting an example. It's something that we could all appreciate at the end of the day. On the subject of TV rights, we have another issue with the Freedom Day Regatta, which is due to take place tomorrow, where the Birgu Rowing Club has hit out at TVM over supposedly breaking the law by not airing the Freedom Day Regatta. So the for those who don't know, the Freedom Day Regatta is one of the oldest Maltese traditions. It's been taking place since 1955 in Malta. It's garnered a lot of the support. It's a cultural tradition here on the island. It hasn't taken place last year or the year before due to COVID restrictions, but it has come under some problems now because TVM won't be broadcasting the race on the day. We do know that this time around it has also come under some additional problems after Transport Malta gave a green light for 2 cruise ships to berth on the Pinto 4 and the Pinto 5 wharf, which had caused some controversy and some clubs, including the association, to speak out against it. In the end, they came up with an agreement which ensured that the race was going to take place as normal. And now there's this, which means that there's a chance that some people won't be able to enjoy the race from the comfort of their own home. I don't know what you make of this.
It's quite disappointing, especially if, as you said, there was an agreement in place between TVM and the clubs for it to be shown. It seems strange that TVM would back out of that agreement. In fact, we're still awaiting kind of the side of the story. But yeah, as you said, it's disappointing for the many people who would want to watch the regatta, especially considering the fact that it's been absent for 2 years. So this was meant to be the
comeback, the big comeback.
The comeback. So yeah, we'll I guess wait and see how this story develops, especially to see what TVM has to say about it. On to our final story. It's another day, another wild dashcam video cropping up online. So Lovin Motor received footage today of this driver, who you can see calmly driving through Marsa, when suddenly this trailer, pulls in front of him, and as it's going to turn, the trailer practically tilts on one side, and for a second looks like it's going to topple over. It's actually the same road where this in fact actually happened a few weeks ago, I guess.
Yeah, with the carcading truck.
Yeah, and so I'm obviously not doing it justice. Log on to lovinmotor.com and have a look at the video. It obviously started a bit of a discussion online about Maltese roads and how they're practically a jungle. I understand that the kind of people taking both sides of the argument. I do feel that it does show a bit of carelessness, kind of in the way people just cut in front of one another. But to be fair, it's also an issue with the nature of Maltese roads. I guess it's a confluence of factors.
It is, and people didn't shy away from expressing the sentiments. As you said, online we had, to get off, this happened at Aldomora Road, so I'm pretty sure it turned a few heads on site, seeing the wheels lift off the ground, it could have ended up in a disaster. But persons took online to voice their comments on this by stating that perhaps it could have been because of how the cargo was packed in the back, which affected the balance of the vehicle. Again, I'm not so much of an expert, but I think if the speed was controlled, that it wouldn't really have been that much of an issue. Others, of course, and we expected this, started making memes about it, and I'm pretty sure there's more of those to come in the future. Whether it remains to be investigated by the police, or all this remains to be seen, because at the end of the day, it could be construed as erratic driving, but there again.
No, for example, you mentioned the fact that some people might have said that the contents of the trailer weren't loaded properly, but again, you'd expect companies to have SOPs and very clear protocols on how to load the trailer, especially in kind of windy conditions like today. Obviously, we don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill, but I can't help but feel that it's symptomatic of this kind of lack of standards in many different areas that every now and then come together and result in a catastrophic outcome. Luckily, it wasn't the case this time. So that's it from us. Thank you very much for following, and have an evening full of lovin'.